Welcome back to Black News Tonight. In Somalia, East Africa, an investigation is underway after reports that civilians were killed there on Tuesday during a confrontation between African Union Peacekeeping troops and Al-Shabab fighters. Unfortunately, news of senseless violence has often been associated with Somalia in the last 30 years. However, there are a whole other side to the country. There's a whole other side there, and it rarely makes headlines. It's the relatively peaceful breakaway region of Somaliland, and with it comes a story of what some say are really two countries on one land. First, there's the history. Somaliland was a British colony, whereas Somalia was colonized by Italy. When the two were united under one republic in the 1960s, separate systems of administration remained. Politically, Somaliland declared itself independent from Somalia in 1991, and it's enjoyed a stable, democratically elected government. Somalia, on the other hand, continues to suffer as a failed state. The people of Somaliland say that it's long overdue that the international community recognize them as their own country, one that's ready to hold its own place on the world stage. Here to explain more is my next guest, Dr. Saad Ali Shire. He is Minister of Finance of the Republic of Somaliland, and he joins us from the capital, Hargeisa. Minister Shire, thank you so much for joining me on Black News Tonight. Somaliland very clearly wants to make it clear that they are not Somalia. Why?
Well, that's right. Well, first, good evening. I'm very pleased to be with you. Well, Somaliland is not Somalia, as you said. Somaliland has a different history. It was a British protectorate from 1897 to 1960, June 26, when it got its independence, and then it decided to join Somalia as two states, and that's what we did. But the union did not work, and in 1991, the people of Somaliland decided to leave the union. We're not seceding, we're not secessionists, we're just leaving a union. And since then, we have been able to develop and rebuild our country and establish a democratic system. And today, we have a president-elect and a parliament-elect, and local councillors-elect, and peace and stability in Somaliland, which unlike the news which you always get from Somalia.
You make an interesting distinction there. You say we're not seceding from the union, we're simply separate. That, to some, would feel like a distinction without a difference. There was a unification, and prior to 1991, the understanding was that you were the same. So when you decided to declare independence, were you not seceding? And if not, respectfully, tell me why the distinction is important.
Well, it's very important because we were two independent states with international boundaries when we joined. So the union was between two states. It wasn't a country that was annexed by another country or part of another country, and that union did not work. And if something doesn't work, for example, in your family, you divorce. And that's exactly what we did. We said, oh, sorry, this is not helping us and helping you, so we'll go our way, you go your way, and that's how it happened.
And you have gone your own way. I mean, No, so I was just going to say Somaliland certainly has gone its own way. You have your own government. You have your own currency. You've been functioning as a separate country from Somalia for 30 years now. Why is it so difficult then, given all of these very clear distinctions, why is it so difficult to have this recognition by the international community? What's at stake here?
I think that's a question for the international community. As you said, we are an independent state by any measure. We have an international boundary, and we have a government-elect, and we have a population, and we can enter into treaties and agreements with other states, and our officers and president are given full protocols when they go outside the country. So by any measure and description, we're a full state. But as you said, we haven't been recognized yet, and we think that's wrongly, because in fact that's denying our people the rights that's due to them. And some people say, well, if Somalia is recognized, then that may open a sort of a Pandora box. But that's not the case, because we had a commission from the African Union in 2004, and they came to Somaliland and they wrote a report which said, Somaliland has absolutely nothing to do with Pandora box. It's a very special case.
How has the Somalian government at various junctures been in response to this call for nationhood status? Have they been resistant at times? Have they wanted to combine? I mean, there's an argument that given the struggles that Somalia has had, that your connection to Somalia allows for a level of stability, some economic vitality, some even legitimacy in terms of rule of law and rule of government, which are, whatever we think about European standards, are often the measure of nationhood when they want to conveniently invoke those things. So has Somalia been helpful? In what ways has Somalia been helpful or not helpful in this struggle?
Well, Somalia has not been helpful at all. Particularly the current president was very unhelpful. We started a dialogue with Somalia back in 2012, and we had up to 10 meetings between us, to discuss this issue and other issues as well. But and we had some agreements on some issues, but the Somalia government never respected never respected the agreements which we reached. So we're really some sort of in a difficult situation at the present time, but we hope that there will be a new president, soon, and that we will be able to discuss the matter again with Somalia at that level.
What does recognition look like for you? Is it member status in the United Nations? Are we talking about the ability to appeal to international criminal courts? Are we talking about being given different levels of trade opportunities for particular nations to trade specifically with Somaliland rather than Somalia? Is it to be immune from the type of global censures and penalties that are often assigned to nations? For example, if Somalia were to be punished by the global community, Somaliland would be exempt under another arrangement. What does it look like?
Well, we want to be a full member of the international community and get all the rights and the privileges and the benefits of being a full member. At the present time, lack of recognition is problematic. We cannot travel. It's difficult for us to travel. We can travel, but it's difficult to travel. It's difficult to attract investment into the country. It's difficult to access international finance. It's difficult to access even aid. So we have a lot of difficulties, in the states of not being recognized. Even though I think miraculously, even though we haven't been recognized for the past 31 years, I think we made enormous achievements, which perhaps even many countries which are recognized haven't made. So, recognition is not everything, but it's a good thing, and we think we have the right to be recognized.
Many people right now are looking at the conditions in Somalia. They're looking at internal strife. Of course, they're looking at the organization Al-Shabab, which of course has a strong relationship with ISIS and Al-Qaeda. People are looking at poverty. They're looking at what many would consider a failed state by technical terms. And they say, well, how is Somaliland different? What are the conditions like in Somaliland? Can you just quickly paint a picture for us about sort of what Somaliland looks like in comparison to Somalia?
Well, Somaliland is an island of peace and democracy, which is a rare thing in the Horn of Africa. We had, for example, just on May 31st, an election for the House of Commons and also an election for the local councillors. And that went very smoothly with no toll, no interruption, no fighting, no machete wielding, crowds, nothing of the sort. It's absolutely ideal. We think we have been able to achieve a lot, in Somaliland.
Well, absolutely. And I want to be very clear to people watching, because I don't want to sort of demonize Somalia. There's often a tendency to take African nations and frame them as lawless and reckless and impoverished or sort of impossibly downtrodden, when in fact Somaliland, Somalia, like many nations, has struggles, has internal challenges, many of which are brought on through the exploitation of the West in the continent of Africa by selective oversight by international communities, by selective intervention by different international bodies. And so we want to be very clear that we're not demonizing Somalia, nor are we sort of marginalizing or dismissing them. At the same time, Somaliland has a very real interest and a very real commitment to its own self-determination and to be seen as a distinct place from Somalia. And we're happy, Dr. Shire, to have you on to make that case and to have that conversation. We'll be sure to have you back soon as we continue to follow this very, very important struggle. Dr. Saad Ali Shire, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, stay with me here on Black News Tonight, and make sure you join the conversation because we want to hear from you. Head over to our BNC Instagram and Twitter pages. Let us know how you feel. Also visit our website, bnc.tv, and subscribe to our YouTube page to check out clips from the show.